Good afternoon, everybody. As everyone is getting logged in and getting their videos set up, we'll wait just a minute to get started. Hopefully everybody is awake from post-election day fatigue and ready to hear our great webinar today. So we'll wait just a few minutes. All right. Looks like we have many of our participants logging in. See those numbers jumping up. I think we'll probably get another dozen or so jumping in for today. So welcome everybody. This is our NAGAP webinar for early November. And as you're getting logged in, I'm going to have some reminders for you and some housekeeping items to remind you about. So while we're waiting on everybody to come in, I would love to see some hands or thumbs up if you attended the fall virtual PDI last week. I guess it was last week? Only last week. It was a great PDI week, I think. So, oh, good. We've got some people who did attend. That was a great week of presentations, I think. I know my staff really enjoyed it. We got a lot out of it. So if you didn't get to attend, you should consider those PDIs in the future because that was a great one. My name is Tracy Collum. I'm the Associate Dean for the Graduate School in Idaho State University. I'm in Southeast Idaho. And I am the coordinator for getting webinars together for our education committee for NAGAP. So if you, again, have any ideas or suggestions or need some speaker suggestions for me, I would love to hear about it, what you would want. We've got several scheduled out for the year, for the academic year, and we always are looking for more presentation topics that would be of interest to the NAGAP membership. In addition to that, coming up on the NAGAP website, if you go to the website, there's an upcoming events listing, and there are several opportunities for you to RSVP. We do have a new series coming up, which is going to be called the Exchange Live Leadership Edition. So if you are a NAGAP member, you may be familiar with the Exchange on the website, which is a membership-only area to exchange ideas, ask questions, and just keep that communication going from the summit every year. Well, now with our webinars, we are calling them the Exchange Live because we are live with our exchange, but we do have a leadership edition that will encompass some of the leaders of NAGAP and some roundtable discussions that will occur with them every month. So those will be a little less formal and more roundtable discussion pieces. So you may want to check those out. We also have our webinar set up for December as well. So now that we've got quite a few people on this afternoon, I do want to remind you, if you have not been in a Zoom meeting recently, that at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A button. This is where you can submit questions throughout the webinar today. Our panelists will be taking questions throughout the webinar, so please submit them when you think of them so they can address them as soon as they feel like they can get to that question. There's also a chat button. If you would prefer to ask your question privately or you want to ask a specific person on the panel, you can chat directly to that panelist. This webinar is being recorded and is on the NAGAP, will be on the NAGAP website behind the membership portal after, usually after a day or two after being recorded. So if you need to reference it later on, you will have that. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce Rob Carroll, who is the co-founder of CampusReel, and CampusReel is doing our webinar this month for next generation college video recruitment. And I think that this has been a huge conversation point over some of the discussion recruitment areas in Summit with proposals and submissions. And we are kind of looking at that next round of ways to recruit efficiently. So I know we're all excited to hear about video recruitment. And I think Rob and Nick and Tom are going to give us all the answers. Right, Rob?
Right. We hope so. And if we need more time for another webinar, then we can do that too.
That's very true. Well, I'm turning it over to you, and hopefully we all are taking lots of notes. So
Awesome.
Take it on, Rob.
Thanks so much, Tracy, and thanks NAGAP and also everybody who's taken the time to tune in today. Hopefully this is a compelling idea and topic. I think video was already on everybody's radar to some extent, given the presence of it and the importance of it on the internet now. And then COVID has really brought it kind of front and center for most offices. And so we're excited to talk with you guys today and really share ideas about how to be creating an effective video strategy that produces the outcomes you want. As Tracy said, my name is Rob Carroll. I'm one of the co-founders here. Nick is also a co-founder. I'm going to introduce him quickly. and then also Tom has been generous enough at this time to join the call and share specifically how Bloomsburg and his department over there is tackling the video kind of dilemma before and after CampusReel. Tom, do you quickly want to just give a little rundown of your background?
Yes. So I work in enrollment management at Bloomsburg University. I'll explain a little more about BU when we get to a little further in the presentation. So I work with both graduate and undergraduate admissions. In fact, I see our director of graduate admissions in the audience today. How you doing, Candy? And I'm one of the people who is tasked with helping to generate, produce, and curate content for our marketing and recruitment and enrollment.
Awesome. And just to give a little bit of context about Nick and myself, we've been working on CampusReel for over 3 years now. And we're working with all different types of clients, not just in the US, but around the world and Europe, both in the undergraduate space, in the graduate school space, and then even in the community college space. So at this point, we've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of discussions with all types of universities and programs. And I think have learned a lot about what the challenges are as it relates to video. And also how to create solutions for those problems, most importantly. So we'll be sharing some of our findings and our learnings over the last 3 years. And then Tom will specifically delve into what they're doing over at Bloomsburg. And I think they have some really cool ideas and systems and tools that they're using that will hopefully be valuable for you guys as well. Nick, I'm going to pass over to you, or actually quickly, on the agenda, we'll introduce CampusReel very quickly, kind of what we do. We'll talk about this idea of video recruitment and how schools have kind of approached the video equation traditionally. And then we're going to let Tom talk about kind of what they're doing at Bloomsburg. I think we've all agreed that we'd like to let kind of the questions roll in. So if we're talking about ideas or you have questions about anything that we're saying, just feel free to type into the chat. Tracy will call them out as they come in, or we'll find them and field them in real time. We also have reserved the second half of this time for a Q&A, but I'm sure you guys will have questions, so feel free to chat in as they come up. Nick, I'm going to pass over to you to just give everybody a brief intro on CampusReel.
Yeah, thanks for that. So, hey everyone, like Rob said, my name is Nick. I'm one of the co-founders here at CampusReel. Just very briefly around our company and kind of our approach to what we think college search should look like moving forward and grad school search should look like. We believe that your student body, the students who make up your community and are so defining to what the actual experience on campus looks like, can and should be at the forefront of everything that you do in a digital presence. And that was kind of our key insight when we were thinking through CampusReel. We felt like real students, if they had the tools and know-how to be able to communicate effectively their story, who they are as a person, and then more specifically, what their experience has been like on campus. That type of transparent, honest information could be really meaningful for prospective students and applicants on the other side. So what we do at CampusReel is we partner with colleges, universities, even some hospitals, any type of institution throughout the company that is committed to higher education, to tap into their student body. We work side by side with their students to create a series of authentic day in the lifestyle videos that really digs into the weeds on what the actual on-campus experience looks like from multiple perspectives. One thing that we always talk about is that every institution is so nuanced, granular, and kind of diversified in terms of the things that need to be brought to the forefront from a search perspective. Different students from different backgrounds or different academic interests have a very specific and differentiated set of needs and information that they need to be communicated to them. You cannot have a videographer on every single corner of your campus, but you do have students who are ready and willing to create some really compelling content to do just that. So our goal with CampusReel is to allow any institution to represent itself in a digital ecosystem in a very holistic and personalized way. Holistic in that we want to bring multiple perspectives to the forefront. So we don't just work with one student, one videographer, one administrator. We try to work with dozens and dozens of different students who represent all the different backgrounds, academic interests, types of personalities that you have on campus. And then the key idea that we always lean into is putting the right content in front of the right student at the right time. Rob is going to dig into the weeds a little bit more on exactly how we do that. But one final point I want to leave you with just about CampusReel and the power of video is that for the 3 years that we were working through video, understanding like what works and what doesn't, we began to build out a platform that was just comprising all of these student generated videos, introducing it into the space. And the thing that really let us know that we were on the right track and that this was the right type of mechanism is that when a student comes to CampusReel's platform, if they watch one video, they're going to end up spending on average 12.5 minutes on site, which for those of you who have an understanding of on-site engagement, that's 3 to 4 times kind of anything that you'll see. So it's just one data point to reinforce the power of video, specifically authentic video. Rob is going to dig into the weeds a little bit more about, the return on video and how you can measure ROI.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Also, I'd love if people tuning in right now, can you just chat the university that you're with and the program? Is it an MBA program, an engineering program, law? I'd love to be able to get a little bit more clarity on who the audience is. Georgia, awesome. Syracuse MBA, great. UVM, awesome. I'll let that keep rolling in. Optometry, cool. I think the diversity of the programs that we're seeing in the chat right now, everything from optometry to MBA, kind of signals that really every program, not just university, right? Every program struggles with this video equation right now. And maybe you don't. I'd love to hear if you don't. But that kind of takes me into the next slide of what has been traditional video recruitment, and then kind of what we consider to be the next generation of video recruitment. And we've talked with hundreds of programs, like I mentioned, and we've found kind of the key themes on the left-hand side of this slide to be true among almost all of them. And what we found is there is a general story that goes something like this, right? You have one videographer that is shared among a bunch of different departments on campus. Some programs are fortunate enough to have their own videographer, but that's pretty rare. A lot of universities might only have a part-time videographer, and some of them are even outsourcing it to just a local agency in town. And so the results of that is you have all of these programs that have all of these video needs. They have strong demand for video because they know it's important. But they have to queue up in a very long line, and they have to wait for that videographer to eventually be able to fulfill whatever they're looking for. And the result is that it happens pretty infrequently, right? So it ends up being extremely high cost to create a single video. It's very, very, very time intensive, and it's not a scalable strategy, right? It doesn't result in dozens or hundreds of videos for programs very easily. One of the most important points, I think, is the unmeasurable ROI bullet. Creating a video is awesome. If you're already doing that, which I'm sure a lot of you are, that's really great. But proving that video, or at least being able to correlate viewership on that video with an actual application or enrolled student is really, really, really tough to do with most of the solutions out there. So we kind of refer to them as naked view counts, right? A video might have 3,000 views, but if you have no idea who's viewing that video or what their next actions are, or if it's actually resulting in an application, then it's really hard to justify investing more money in video. So you get caught in this feedback loop. And the last bullet, one size fits all, I also think is a really compelling idea here. Because if we can solve for those, high costs and time intensive video projects, then that also allows us to create more content. But how do we put the right content in front of the right student, right? An international student from India or China ideally we'll see different videos than a student who's domestic and from Florida or in-state. So traditional recruitment, because it usually results, or sorry, traditional video recruitment, because it results in low levels of video, usually just means it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from, you're going to get the same video experience as everybody else. As that relates to next generation video storytelling, what we want to do, which sounds really tough at first, but what we want to do is create more video than ever. We want to do it at a fraction of the cost. And we also want to put the right content in front of the right student at the right time. And then to top it all off, we want to measure the ROI. So that's where kind of CampusReel comes in as this end-to-end video solution. Like Nick said, we work with universities to generate video content at scale without sacrificing engagement, right? So these videos are really, really, really sticky. And then in addition to that, we can know exactly who's watching the content and how they engage with that. So those insights go right back into your CRM or your enrollment strategy. I think what's worth noting is the second bullet on the right-hand side here. The video issues we talked about existed pre-COVID, but now what we're seeing during COVID is, there's dramatic decreases in in-person campus visits. You also don't have a lot of these traditional fairs that a lot of programs and students connect at. And so you don't have this like handshake, right? You don't have any of these handshake activities that allow an admissions representative and a student to build trust and connection in the real world. And so now more than ever, universities are struggling and really, interested in finding a solution to build that same trust and that same connection that you can in person online. And the authenticity of CampusReel videos really lends itself to that. Last bullet, scalable content with ROI, I kind of touched on that. And we'll get into it a little bit later. But hopefully that gives you guys kind of a good idea of how CampusReel approaches like video a few years ago or currently for most universities compared to what we want to do when we come and work with the university. And then I'm going to turn it over to Tom now, who's going to talk specifically about what they're doing over at Bloomsburg prior to CampusReel, and then after working with CampusReel, kind of how that's helped transform their video strategy. And I think that will help contextualize a lot of what I talked about above. So Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Thanks everyone for joining us today. So our traditional recruitment activities in graduate admissions, which is again directed by Candy, was pretty boilerplate. And I would imagine that for most institutions, for most organizations joining us today, every bullet point on there you were doing as well. We're not necessarily, recreating the wheel in admissions, and largely because that doesn't need to happen. But we did know that we needed to find a way to bridge the gap between where we were located physically and virtually and where our prospective audiences were. And the easiest way to do that is through video. So we spent a lot of time with, again, cultivating campus visits and building a program. And Candy and I work very closely with graduate program coordinators and developing an email content strategy and webinars and things of that nature. But ultimately, that's not always going to give prospective audiences something that they're looking for. They're looking for a visual representation of what their life is going to be like as a student in that grad program at that institution. And I think what you oftentimes see in most promotional videos are very similar to what Rob and Nick had mentioned earlier, where they are created by a university marketing and communications team, or they're handled by an agency, right? And they tend to be broad, sweeping narratives that oftentimes lacks some of the more nuanced or specific items that you would like to address. And that's just one video that can become somewhat static and dated. And you might only get 1 or 2 videos a year. That's probably not enough to fill the appetite for what your prospective audiences are looking for. So that's kind of where we got into video production in the admissions office at BU, where we started to look at this and say, okay, well, how can we take some ownership of this? At most institutions, you might have, like Rob had mentioned, a videographer or 2, depending on the size of the institution. And I know, frankly, I didn't feel like it was fair to them for us to monopolize their time, right? They have other clients on campus that they're working with. It's not fair for me to go to them with 10 different ideas. And frankly, some of the videos, some of the ideas that we had weren't always didn't warrant, an official script. It didn't warrant, a voiceover or some of these other more formalized ways of creating video. So it's like, but we still wanted to do some kind of video. We do our best to steer clear of very generalized items. We do our best to steer clear of saying the slogans that you would probably find at any university or on any university marketing materials. Small class sizes, personalized attention. Students are so used to hearing that it just becomes like wallpaper. So how can you illustrate that in a different way? Because the reality is those things are probably true for each institution, but students are so used to hearing it that it just doesn't mean as much as it used to. So we do our best to try to illustrate that by video. And that's where, for us, CampusReel kind of came into the picture. In fact, CampusReel was introduced to us by one of our previous grad assistants who is now working in grad admissions at another institution. And I think he met with Rob and Nick at a conference, said this might be something we want to look at. We instantly saw like this out of the box solution, one that didn't require a high level of technical know-how or video production chops, which I do not have. So this was a no-brainer for us.
And Tom, I'm curious, like how many videos were you creating, call it 2 years ago or whatever, but like, did you even have a goal, or was it like, we got a video here, we got a video there, and we check the box, right? But was there like too much or that much strategy or thought process going along with,
Sure.
how many videos do we want to have and how many different perspectives do we want to represent, that we're trying to recruit to? Was there any thought process like that?
So I could probably count the amount of videos we were producing on one hand, and that was largely on me because there was this level of intimidation of like, I don't even know where to begin. As far as I was concerned, the idea of creating a video was as foreign of an idea as putting a man or a woman on the moon, right? So you could have told me it was equally as complicated. I'd be like, yeah, no, that sounds about right. So I think that initial hump always kind of prevented me from being interested in taking the next step until we had stumbled on to CampusReel by happenstance. So our videos that we have produced, like I said, were largely at the institutional level. We would repurpose them, but it didn't really address a lot of these specific items that we wanted addressed and that likely our prospective audiences wanted addressed. Like a lot of the videos that most universities are going to create are likely going to be the ones that are introductory, right? This might be the student or, prospective audience's first interaction with that school, So, but once you got beyond that, there wasn't a ton of content. And that's where we knew we needed to go there, but we just didn't know how.
Awesome. And I maybe should have scrolled to this slide earlier for you, Tom.
No, sorry, I was just kind of rambling.
No, I think you started touching on some of this, but I think we'd love to hear a little bit more of like where the video strategy is at now.
Sure.
And even, for me personally, I'd love to hear how has having all this content changed your approach to video, and kind of like how you view it as kind of a resource and a tool.
So BU, we are a mid-sized public university in Northeast Pennsylvania. We are located in a rural area. We have 20 grad programs. Given the landscape of higher ed, we're not in, I love the town that we're located in, but there's no city in our backyard, right? So it's not, even pre-pandemic, it was not always convenient for students and parents and supporters to be able to make it to campus to investigate BU and see what their experience is going to be like. So we've always known that we were going to have to bridge that gap. And then I don't know if you know this or not, but there's been a global pandemic that's been happening for the past year or so, right? So that really kind of sped up this process where it's like, okay, now physically they're literally, they can't come to campus. Okay, but campus for us is also our biggest selling point. So created this tough situation where it's like, okay, we need to do something to help meet them where they're at. So if campus and our current students are our biggest selling point, let's merge the idea, right, and package it in a way that is understandable and accessible, and also one that's segmented. I think, Nick, this is something you had mentioned earlier, but, we do our best to create segmented material. We do not want general pieces of information, right? One of the recommendations, and I can talk more about this if anyone has any questions, that we go over with our content creators is you almost want to pick an idea that's so specific you don't think you're going to have enough content to be able to write about. right? Or to be able to generate video about. Because what we're trying to do is peel away those initial layers. We can assume that people know who Bloomsburg is, right? If they're on our radar, they know Bloomsburg. What we want is, no, what is life like as an MBA student, right? What does a capstone project, what does that look like when you're working on it? Walk us through a day in the life or an hour in the life of a student in one of our doctoral programs. That's the kind of information that I think students are looking for. Did that answer your question, or did I just go off on a tangent?
Tom, I have a question
Yes.
for you. So one of the things that has come up whenever we've looked at adding content that's more video related is trying to find the right student. So well, you just gave some examples of content to talk about. How do you find a student that could also be engaging and be the right person that isn't scared of video? I mean, some of our adult students that haven't lived on TikTok for the past 4 years are not as in tune to making videos. So how do you select them? What are your thoughts on that?
Sure. So the first recommendation I would give is most institutions, I would imagine probably all, are going to have grad assistants, right? So I mean, right off the bat, you already have this built-in team of university ambassadors, whether they know it or not. They're an extension of the university where they are GAing for. So that would probably be the lowest hanging fruit, and also allows you to create segmented content, right? Because your GA is going to be specific probably to either what your grad program is or something that they might be doing as a grad assistant, or maybe they can, like if they're a grad assistant in an administrative office, but they're doing their master's degree in ed leadership, they can, even though their GA is in this role, they can still produce content for what their academic program is. So that's probably the lowest hanging fruit, our grad assistants. But I know one of the things that we've done on the undergrad level is we've tapped into our tour guides and our student workers to be our primary content generators. We already know that they have an aptitude for working with the public, and same thing with GAs, right? You probably wouldn't have hired the grad assistants if you didn't trust them to handle an important amount of work. So those would probably be the recommendations that I would provide. And then we found a lot of value in the CampusReel Training Academy, where it helps students get an idea of, it really helps them put the fine polish on their skills. And I think, what you would be surprised, and I know what I was very surprised with, was a lot of students are very comfortable on camera as it is. Now, Tracy, like you'd said, some students that might be a little bit older might not have that same level of comfort, but I think you'd be surprised in general how a lot of your graduate level students will still have that level of comfort because they've grown up with this. Like they're not only digital natives, they are like content natives. So that was one thing that I was pleasantly surprised on. So we put them through the CampusReel Training Academy, and then we always go through these check-in points where we talk to them about what constitutes good content. Because even to a certain degree, they are conditioned to think in terms of those generic terms that they saw when they were evaluating different grad programs. So they, sometimes those generic talking points or slogans will come out of the woodwork. It's like, no, that's not what we want, right? Don't tell us general things, go specific, right? There's a difference between an attribute and a benefit. What we want is the benefit, right? There's a difference between the who and the what and the how and the why. What we want is the how and the why. So those are some of the pieces of advice that we give, but I would think grad assistants would be the best place to start.
Thanks.
And I'll be honest with you,
Great. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, there was some degree of, I was a little nervous, and I'm sure Candy would probably agree with this too, where, all right, you're putting a lot of, there's essentially almost 100% transparency between the videos that they're creating and the videos that they're loading. So we have a little bit of involvement in there. But for the most part, we trust our students to produce authentic videos, not only because that's what they want to do, but also because that's what prospective audiences want to do. Like I know even for me personally, I'll be 34 in December. If I hear a commercial come on, I change channel. Right, something that's carefully curated about anything. It could be about, shoes, coffee, whatever. I turn the channel. If it's something that I know is authentic, an authentic experience where they probably don't have a lot invested in this, so I know I'm going to get the honest truth, I will absolutely listen to that. And I think that's one of the things that we saw a lot of value in CampusReel is the level of authenticity, and also that when you're on CampusReel, it's expected that it's going to be authentic. It's expected that you're going to have the ability to pull the curtain back. So we like that.
And Tom, I think that's all really great points. And just from our perspective, like we've worked with dozens and dozens and dozens of different institutions at this point, and a big part of our process is working with the institution to identify and recruit the right types of students for a position like this. And I think the key word there is like the right types of students. Like it's not that every single person on the campus who has a story to tell is going to be well equipped to perform on a platform like this, as I'm sure Tom has kind of seen from like trial and error. But what we believe and what we've kind of proven just through our process is that on every single institution, no matter how big or small, there are students who are ready, willing, and able to create really compelling video content. Sometimes it takes a little bit of doing to find those actual students, but I think the core idea here is that the current students throughout your community who would potentially, you all would enlist to participate in a program like this, they were prospective students on the other side of the equation not that long ago. And they've just felt all of these pain points that we're trying to solve for in such a real and visceral way. So time and time again, when we're talking with prospective content creators about what CampusReel is all about and what this video project is like, pretty much universally, they're like, wow, I really wish that something like this existed. When I was going through the process, I was so curious what the students were like. In a lot of instances, I felt like I was really at a loss just from an information standpoint. So when they really understand like where these types of videos fit into the overall recruitment and search side of the equation, they get motivated to be part of that solution for that problem because they've just felt the pain points themselves. So I think it's all to say that like it really is about identifying the right types of students. That being said, we can guarantee that there are students with that throughout your community that would be very effective on a platform like this.
I think what would also be helpful, because we're talking about this idea of authentic content and students first and everything. Sometimes that can be hard to conceptualize though, how it differs. So I actually have a video queued up that was taken at Bloomsburg relatively recently. This is Ryan, right, Tom? And so right now I'm viewing this on obviously CampusReel's website. We do have a ton of ways to like embed the videos on your own site and all that stuff. I'll play this for like 5 seconds because I think that's all you need to get an idea of what's going on. What I'll also point out is just that, you know, the videos are built essentially on top of Google Maps. So you can zoom into where the video was taken. They're transcribed automatically on AWS. And then Bloomsburg has these other tour channels to check out. So they have other students that are creating content. And it's a pretty easy way to just navigate around all of the content. And if I just play this, I think it will show kind of what, or demonstrate what we're talking about.
I'm currently majoring in adult deaf education, early childhood education studies, and I have a minor in American Sign Language and a minor in special education. I am from Long Island, New York, so I am an skater. So for any of you skaters watching this.
So that probably 15 seconds probably gives you a pretty good idea that Ryan created that content on her own. She's created a dozen videos like that on her own, showing students essentially a day in her life, prospective students. And then there's a number of other students at Bloomsburg who are doing the same exact thing. And so what that allows us to do is know, okay, if there's another student who's from the same hometown as Ryan, right, or has the same interest in the area of study, they should be watching her day in the life series of content, right, as opposed to Jenna's series of videos, which might relate to another student. And so that's why you're able to get content at scale. But what Ryan did there with those cool effects and editing and all that stuff, she just essentially went through CampusReel's Creator Academy and applied all of those on her own. She became her own little professional videographer in a day. And hopefully that provides a little bit more insight into what the content is that comes out of this program or engine.
Yeah, and I think the interesting part with that too is the idea that we can create like these channels that are organized around students and their experiences. So like, you know, we have, a tour channel dedicated to one of our students named Brittany, who is an American Sign Language major, right? Not only do I think our prospective audiences like that, but our content generators then take some ownership of that and take some pride in that because their name is right next to it. And they want to make sure that they produce good content because that's a good reflection on them. So we've also worked very hard to help connect the dots between what are some of the tangible outcomes that our content creators would get out of this, right? So this is a two-way street. So whether they're a nursing major or they're an MBA student, we find ways, we sit down with them and go through their resume and explain to them, now, here's a bullet point you can add. You know, you might want to talk more about this and make sure you give yourself credit for this. So that way it's a productive experience for them as well.
Awesome. Tom, could you also talk a little bit about the ROI element and how you essentially evaluate if the content is generating results or not?
So we use the dashboard often. That I would say, like, every morning, that's probably one of the first things that I'm going to look at. You know, I have my inbox and I have our CRM and some of these other tools, but I'm going to look at the CampusReel dashboard, which I am not a person that has a background in data and analytics by any means. So like the visual representation is a lot easier for someone like me to read. It's very much end user friendly. So we view CampusReel, frankly, I mean, this is a lead tool. This is an inquiry generation tool. We use it in other ways. And we use this to communicate to students throughout the admissions funnel from lead to, enrollee. But largely, probably the easiest thing for me to communicate it in terms of the ROI is going to be lead and inquiry generation. So that's going to be the biggest thing that we look at this as. You know, when we were first adopting this, that was the lens through which we were looking at this.
Okay, that's awesome. I'd love if anybody out in the audience has questions right now about what we're talking about, feel free to chat them in. We always like when this stuff is engaging. It's possible that we're talking about everything you guys could ever be thinking of and there's no questions. I'd also love to hear if you guys are doing anything at your universities differently than this, or just other insights you would share around your video strategy. That would be really interesting. I have another screen up here, by the way. So if I'm looking to the left, that's why I have the chat box over here.
And just until we get questions. So I know one of the other items that we found a lot of value in too was the idea of creating scalable content themes, right? So if you were going to pay an agency to create a commercial for you, you're going to put a lot of time, a lot of money into producing one video. Like maybe they sell you the B-roll or something like that on the back end, and you can reuse some of that, but likely you're gonna get one video out of that, right? So what we liked about CampusReel is we could create these tropes or these themes that were easily replicable, right? Is that the right word? Replicable, from students in another program or students that are involved in a similar organization, but maybe it's different, right? And really what you're doing is you're changing out the name, you're changing out, maybe what the major is, what the grad program is, but you're still keeping the same kind of theme. And it's equally as productive for the person creating the content as it is for the viewer. So we can spend, let's say you spend 10 hours creating a commercial, or you can spend 3 hours creating a theme that produces 9 videos, right? And then what we also like to do then is we'll take these videos and we will repurpose them over and over and over again on different platforms or at different times of the year or with a different lead in. So there's a lot of ways to repurpose this. And right now, I know everyone's probably looking for content, especially virtual or digital content. One of the things we say in our office is virtual is the new reality. And in order to help meet that demand, you have to have good content and original content and new content. So that's why CampusReel has been part of a big, important part of our content strategy in general.
Awesome. That makes a lot of sense. Looks like Mario just wrote in. You speak about videos for people who have been admitted, so they accept the offer of admission. They're already past the inquiry point.
Mm-hmm. We do. So one of the things that we sit down and we work on every year is the idea of segmented videos for where a student would be in the purchasing process, right, or in the admissions funnel. So there's normally a very clear goal for one of these videos, whether, is this yield, is this push to apply, is this push to complete your app? Well, probably not push to complete your app, but and that's based on some of the items that we know students at that stage of the funnel are going to be interested in, right? For example, if you are, let's say you are a junior in college and you're at the lead or inquiry stage for an MBA program, the information you're looking for is probably cursory, right? You're looking for overviews. Whereas when you are a senior in your spring semester looking at MBA programs and you're at the applicant stage, you're looking for different kinds of information, right? You want ROI, you want job placement, you want examples about internships. So what these videos do is illustrate what those things are. So rather than just send an email that says, yeah, 90% of students do internships, what we'll do is we'll work on creating a video then that walks a student through from interviewing for an internship to doing the internship to what they got out of it. Kind of like a longitudinal study, like just to kind of give you an idea of how we look at that kind of thing.
And one just sort of use case that might be worth noting to that question, Mario, is we're currently partnered with Brandeis International Business School, and we're working with a ton of their graduate students to create this series of authentic videos. But in their use case, the administration also wanted to get involved. And to that point, we are working now with the administration to create a series of videos where they're thanking applicants for sending in their application, just saying like how excited they are to read it and to meet them. It's a really simple project, and it wasn't anything that took a lot of lift, and we're not sort of like reinventing the wheel by any means with it. But I think it just speaks to how dynamic and customizable video is as an approach. We didn't approach the administration saying like, hey, this is part of CampusReel's offering. They just asked us if we could do it. Video is incredibly customizable, and you can really accomplish many of the goals that are related to either a personal connection or information sharing can be accomplished in video. So to Tom's point, like you can create really intentional student-driven content that's meant to bring students from once they're past the inquiry point to have them kind of cross the finish line. Or you can just create like a fun series with administrators who are thanking them for sending in the application. And who knows how impactful that like nice personalized touch might be for that student when they're considering the institution.
Awesome. Mario, does that help answer your question? If not, feel free to type up a follow-up question.
We'll take that as a resounding yes.
And I know one of the things too that we'll use is we do try to feature faculty and staff as well. Now, generally, there's a student involved in shooting the video. They're normally doing an interview of some sort, but it's a great way too to feature your faculty. When you're a prospective grad student, one of the things you're going to be most interested in probably is the faculty area of research, faculty area of study, and the courses that they teach. Again, that's a great content theme, is trying to showcase the faculty from your program.
It's a great idea. We also have a few schools using it to source alumni content, which is pretty cool. Awesome. So I think that brings us just to the second to last slide, I guess. And I think we kind of touched on all of these ideas pretty much, some more than others, but just kind of what to look for when you're crafting your own strategy relating to video, regardless of if you want to come, work with us or partner with us or not. Of course, we're happy to speak with anybody and hear what you guys are doing internally, because we always like to learn more. But I think this idea of tracking interest and engagement, lead generation, like Tom said, should be a really big priority, because video has been so expensive that you just want to make sure if you're investing the time and the resources in it, that it's actually having outcomes. And then tailoring the right content to the right student is really, really valuable. Again, it requires a lot of video content to do well, but if you're able to, that's going to increase engagement dramatically and make sure that viewers are getting the info that they need. This idea of building trust and connection, especially during COVID, I think is really key. I mean, even right now we're on video. It's live video as opposed to pre-recorded video, but it's pretty much all we have during COVID. And it's a really, really effective way, I think, to build that connection. And also allows for equal access, right? I'm sure you all have prospects all over the country, all over the world, really, who would like direct access, in-person access to meet students and meet the teams on the ground at a program or a university, but that's just not really in the cards right now for a lot of programs out there. So during COVID, I think that's an especially important idea. But even outside of COVID, right, not everybody has the luxury of taking time off to go visit a campus in person. There is some inequality in that process, and CampusReel can definitely help bridge the gap for students who aren't able to do that. And then lastly, all of this works together to drive enrollment and admissions. At the end of the day, what we've done at CampusReel is really created a purpose-built platform, right? It's an end-to-end platform that drives enrollment, as opposed to YouTube, which is, you know, a free-for-all, and it's used for a million different elements, and the video creation is actually left up to you. But CampusReel is really built to move the needle there. Nick, was there anything else?
Well, we have a couple of questions in that maybe
Oh, okay.
I'll speak to really quickly.
Oh, yeah.
So one from Amy, who said, do you structure the content on your CampusReel profile by funnel stage, prospect versus admitted student? And if so, how do you do it? That's a really interesting question. So the first point that I would say is, like, we really arm any institution that we're partnered with the keys to customize their presence on CampusReel how they see fit. From our perspective and all of the product testing that we've done, our goal with the CampusReel profile pages is really about putting the right content in front of the right student at the right time. So really giving them like the type of experience that they would feel like it's very personalized. So the first part of that experience is every student that we work with creates a series of videos. They're not just creating a one-off video where they're like broadly speaking about their institution. They're really digging into the weeds and creating at least 4 videos talking to all the different facets of their experience. Each student who contributes content on CampusReel has their own persona and their own profile front and center on a page. So typically what we see is prospective students will kind of scroll through all of the different quote unquote tour guides on CampusReel, and they'll find that student that they resonate with most, who they feel like has shared their experiences. So whether that's because the student is from the same part of the country or world, has the same academic interests, or is just kind of like the same type of personality. And we find the prospective students will really watch those videos sequentially as opposed from bouncing from student to student. The other way that we see institutions leveraging the categorization of our videos is on a category basis. So one way is to kind of break down your institution into different categories. So whether that's from an academic perspective, like chemistry tour, strict business student tour, engineering student tour, or by kind of facet of the experience. So you can have like an international student tour, like maybe an underrepresented student tour. We see it a lot coming through with those use cases, but if something like that were really important for your own use case, Amy, like it's very easy to kind of have a package of sort of like when students are in that prospecting phase, like all of the questions that they would want to know, you could build a whole series from multiple students speaking to that phase of the equation. And then I think even more like on the nose is if you had admitted students and you wanted to make like a welcome series from real students greeting them to the campus, I think that would be a phenomenal way to leverage video and would be something that's very in line with how we've designed the pages. Does that help, Amy?
Yeah, Tom, do you have any insight there on how you've been segmenting CampusReel's content?
Sure. So when we were in the infancy stages of CampusReel, we were not quite as sophisticated as the idea of thinking of things through like a segmented view. I mean, that probably would have made sense. But I think what we have found is what Nick is saying is that, yes, the idea of having these channels is almost like Netflix, right? Instead of having, like a genre, you have students and what they're interested in. And that's built into the title of whatever that tour is, where a student who is looking at your school and your program is going to be interested in finding a similar student, whether they're from the same geographic area or they're enrolled in the same grad program or whatever it may be. So they're more likely to consume content through that lens. The other thing to keep in mind too is, so there's a shareable ability too with the video. So like I know when we create CampusReel videos, we selfishly want to use that content in other locations, right? So that becomes content that's in our marketing emails. That becomes content that's used in our social media campaigns. That's content that's used, that we will drive people to through text messages, so you can repurpose that where you want it to go. As opposed to like, you're probably going to get a lot of organic traffic, but you can also run, push people to specific videos based on their location in the funnel as well. And we do that. We'll use them both equally.
And I think one thing that we just won't have enough time on this call, but in a one-on-one call or private call, we can share how our website is kind of one half of the equation, but we've also built these pretty cool ways to take the content on CampusReel and show it to your viewers directly from your admissions page. So for instance, if you have transfer student channel, or you have a dorm, life channel on CampusReel, you can just pull that in directly onto, your residence hall pages, for example. So that's one way to also make sure that you're putting the right content in front of the right student. And I think it's also worth noting, Lisa actually had typed a question in a few minutes ago asking if we could show the admin panel. So we generally don't show it in kind of a public forum like this because it will contain sensitive information. In a private call, we can do that. But in the admin panel, you're literally able to just like select videos and then drag and drop an order into a way that makes sense. And you can splice and dice this content infinitely, right? Nick was talking about some of the ways you can do it, but if you have, a bundle of 50 videos inside of your administrator panel, you can slice that into hundreds of different tours if you wanted to get creative with it. So it's all drag and drop and very user friendly, like Tom said. Also, Matthew asked, are we able to discuss pricing? So what we can tell you is I think it's very, very price friendly. We have packages starting as low as about $6,700. So we think it's very affordable, even for a community college or some universities or programs that tend to have smaller budgets. The actual pricing is just really kind of case by case and depending on what your needs are and what you're looking to get out of the program. But we try to keep it very affordable. Our goal is, we want to be, kind of ubiquitous. We don't want to have just, undergraduate programs or just graduate programs. We really want to help any program out there that's struggling with video. So the price point has stayed pretty low. Hopefully that's enough of an answer to that question for now. But what that also leads me to is this last section of the presentation. The main takeaway here in the partner spotlight is kind of what I was saying, right? We want to be able to help any program out there that's struggling to solve video. We even do this for a hospital, Mass Gen Hospital. So any community that has a network of students, we can essentially tap into that and create content. I think our partner slide really speaks to that idea. This is not just one subset of university programs. We have little tiny liberal arts colleges. Some of our colleges undergraduate are under 500 students. We have graduate programs, and then we have international clients and schools in Canada. So we really worked with them all, and we just want to put this out there so that you guys know that we kind of have that experience. And otherwise, that concludes our part of the presentation. If there are more questions, of course, keep chatting them in. Nick, you have something?
Yeah, no, there's just Matthew said, thank you. Would you be able to share an email to set up private chat?
Absolutely.
So Rob, if you want to post your email, I'll put mine in here too.
Yeah, so, and on this slide, if you are interested in learning more about what we're talking to and really kind of diving deeper into your own video strategy, we're just happy to speak to anybody. We want to learn what you guys are doing. Obviously, we want to see if CampusReel, if there's a way for us to partner together. My email is right here. Feel free to shoot me an email. I'll type it in the chat as well. And Nick just put his on. But we are totally open to hearing from anybody out there who wants to speak further about what you guys are doing. Tracy, if there are more questions, of course, we're happy to field them as long as they come in. But otherwise, I think I'll give it back over to you.
Yeah, so Rob, when you typed your email in, you put it for the panelists, which I think we have. So if you want to add attendees to that so they can copy it and paste it if they want.
Got it, yeah. All panelists and attendees, you guys can have it too.
That would be great, yeah. Where Nick found that ahead of time.
I'm the tech guy in the mix.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks, Rob. So yeah, if anybody has any questions for Nick or Rob, definitely copy those emails. And then remember that this webinar has been recorded, so you can also scroll back to the end of the recording to grab those emails as well if you need to. I don't have any other questions that have come in to me, but if anybody has one here at the last second, I know we've had some people jumping off, heading to other meetings and such, but you are welcome to send those in. So I do want to thank CampusReel, Rob and Nick. Thanks so much for presenting on this and giving us some more information, and Tom for some really good insight on how you've utilized it on the day-to-day basis. I think we all have some takeaways that we can try to work on or work through our planning over the next year, especially during COVID. But these are good tips for post-COVID as well, as we're trying to move into different avenues. So thank you all so much for that. And Rob, do you have anything further to close up on? Or
No, I
are
think
you
we're
pretty
all
set?
good from our end. But thank you again, Tracy, for helping to coordinate everything, and everybody who showed up and stayed till the end. Really appreciate your time as well, and hopefully it was helpful and informative.
Yeah, thank you all so much. So with that, we will close out. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. And we will be seeing you all in a few weeks for other NAGAP events. So thanks, everybody.
Awesome.